All right. Any thoughts for you, sir?
In addition to what Svetlana was saying, back in the late 1800s and so, there were large scientific expeditions for eclipses, including 2 to Labrador. So in addition to Eclipse Island, in the very north of Labrador, almost to the very top, there is an Eclipse River, Eclipse Pond, and Eclipse Harbor. Those came from a U.S. expedition. And, of course, these days, technology being what it is, if you Google map up there to have a look at it and turn it to 3D, the side of Eclipse Harbor looks very much like a crater.
Huh.
And so I'd invite anyone to look at that as well. 1905, there was a major scientific expedition to Labrador as well, and they actually had, I believe, the steamer King Edward that came up from the eastern United States to St. John's and then up, as well as across Quebec. And unfortunately, it clear day the day before, rain the morning, cleared off after the totality. So that was nice to read too.
Are you taking bets or odds on the weather for April 8th?
It's too far out. I've been looking at the long-range forecast, and unfortunately, a lot of the forecasting and stuff you see are American-based, and America sometimes doesn't even know where Canada is, let alone Eastern Canada. And I've seen eclipse maps that say it stops in Fredericton, for example, right? And now you can study as much as you want in terms of stats for history of cloud cover and these sorts of stuff. And there's a guy in Manitoba, Jay Anderson, who's looked at this. That's his expertise, and coalesced it into what the cloud probabilities are. And of course, April is notoriously cloudy for a lot of places, including us. And he was estimating that the best place would be Mexico and Texas. And the Maritimes, 75-80% possibility of cloud. Except last year, April 8th, it was cloudy in Texas and Mexico and clear in the Maritimes. So fate may do it. So who knows what's going to happen in clouds. Sorry, Ashley, but I won't believe anything she says till 2 or 3 days before.
2 or 3 days out. Robin, is there a protective symbol?
I mean, you could probably use any of them, really.
All right, so this is it. We'll get our protective symbols out, and we'll see what happens with the weather.
Yeah, bury a shoe.
Yeah, no, this is. I like how we're coming up with plans here.
Definitely.
Right? It really works. And how many eclipses have you seen?
I've been to 5 and seen 4 totals. My first was 1970. Went to Terra Nova Park, as the Newfoundland Quarterly article mentioned. I convinced my 2 older brothers to drive to Terra Nova to see it. I had just started university in the fall of '69, a month after the moon landing. You can't imagine how much that spurred interest in astronomy and space and those things. And again, that's a completely different world from what it is these days, right? Did we even have cable TV back then, or color TV for that matter? So there was no internet, there was no instantaneous, and how would you find something? There was no Wikipedia. At best, you had magazines, which were 3 months published before you got them. So it was quite exciting. Now, statistically, I think I grew up in the right era, because in the last 50 years, there's been more eclipses in North America than there'll be for the next 50 years. So I went to Nova Scotia in '72, a relatively quick trip, right? Drove over with some friends, Gary Diamond, for example, and we had a beautiful eclipse. In addition to the science that Svetlana was saying, there are psychological and physiological aspects to it as well. Like, even though we only saw the shadow go over in Terra Nova in 1970, there was a feeling, an eerie buzz almost in the air, that you could feel something was happening as you see the shadow going over. And especially if you're in the crowd, crowds always have their own physiological aspects. People shouting, people crying, people, trying to give expertise and these sorts of things. And so 72 was perfect. We had an excellent eclipse. 79 was the complete opposite of that. We went to Winnipeg and then went north from Winnipeg. It was in the middle of February. It was minus 40. My camera froze up. But that was the first time I'd seen the totality of the eclipse. That was an oval in the sky with this black hole in the middle of it. That was the sun. And twilight on the sides of it. Absolutely fantastic. So there was a bit of a break then. So 91, I went to Mexico. And you're starting to get into the start of popularity then. The wisdom was that it was at the very tip of the Baja. And there's only one road going down, so it was, you're not going to be able to drive. It's going to be cars parked all the way up and down Baja. So what did we do? We flew down, stayed overnight in Mazatlan and went across. Didn't see anybody. So we had a beautiful eclipse as well. It was 35 degrees, and then flew back the next day. So 2017, a bunch of us, including Gary again, went to Denver and got on a bus tour and went north into Wyoming. That is the first time that we really had the social media eclipses. We were stuck on the bus for 12 hours coming back. People were stopped on the super highways, the interstate, to take selfies of the eclipse, if you can imagine.
Oh, I can.
And nobody had anticipated this amount of traffic.
Yeah.
How could you anticipate what was going to happen? Again, that was a beautiful eclipse. I have video and pictures and everything of that. So the experience again. That was the biggest crowd I think I've been in for an eclipse. And now this is 2017, probably my last one. There's a good one in Spain in 26, but you're getting into geopolitics now and climate change and all those other things, because if you remember last summer, we had smoke in the atmosphere, climate change. You didn't want to go to Spain last summer, that's for sure, right? And again, geopolitics, like I say, there's an eclipse going through Yemen in 2017. Well,
might be a little tough to see.
Who knew what Yemen was in 2017?
Yeah.
How would you get to Yemen? So there's those things as well. So,
It's a fascinating through line, right? For your life, like when you look from 1970 until like for the chart ahead that you were just doing, for all of the time and place things that were happening, right? I remember I did this a radio documentary the other year on a British schools expedition that was here in '69, so the year before the eclipse. But the group of schoolboys were in the woods somewhere on the northern peninsula, down and around Deer Lake during the moon landing. Right, so when they came out of the woods and they're talking to folks, it's like, I mean, they knew it was supposed to happen, but it's still like, what do we miss? It's like, well,
what did you miss?
Well, they did it, and you folks were camping.
Do you know what the most popular question just after that was? If you had a telescope, can I see them on the moon? No. And that, of course, spurred people to get bigger and bigger and bigger telescopes then to see if you could see those things, right? Nowadays, it's all automated.
Yeah.
So,
I remember, I had a telescope when I was a kid.
the advancement of technology has just gone crazy. Even, for example, if I could mention, for the 2017 eclipse, some scientists were trying to see what they could do in terms of deaf people, blind people, these sorts of things. So they came up with a device that would actually emit sound based on pictures. And that's now morphed into an app on your phone, so you can actually get tactile feel for what's showing on the screen of an eclipse. And this app knows where you are, what time it is, so it can actually track perfectly the eclipse that is being seen with sound now as well, right? And so that's a good part of science, I think, to bring that kind of stuff up too.
Yeah.
Likewise, someone has a Braille book, and the Braille pages are for the timing, so you can actually feel how much of the sun is being covered at the time.
Well, for inclusion, accessibility, having folks be able to do that now with the old joke from like 10 years ago. There's an app for that, but some of them are actually really great. Others, not so much.
Well, I wonder what will happen during the totality of when everybody's trying to talk on the phone. Cell phone coverage is going to drop out. And everybody wants to broadcast these days. How many people are Facebook living? We'll see how that works out.
Yeah, content all the time. Joan, what do you think about, like, when you get to do an issue, right? So like, you're like, oh, we're going to do the science issue. And then all the stuff you get to learn through, it doesn't matter what issue it is, but for this one, right? So you got Robin's piece, right? You know, you've all this stuff on the eclipse. What's that like for you?
It's such a great part of my job, and like to contrast to piece. I know you're going to be talking to Jalen soon, but Daryl Hillier's piece came about because I ran into him in the mall. And I know him, and I just mentioned that the next theme is science, so he writes so extensively and so well about Gander during World War II. So he right away had, not only did he have this suggestion for a scientific advance that had happened during World War II, but it's connected to the massive hit Oppenheimer, plus he himself found part of it, discovered part of it on his own expeditions. And then opposite to that, I was thinking, you know, is there such a thing as Indigenous science, Mi'kmaq science? And Googled that and came up with two-eyed seeing.
Yeah.
And so you don't, you know, I just want to, this is my ignorance talking, you know, you don't want to be disrespectful. You don't want to rush off into some new age direction, and that's totally taking something and turning it into something that it's not. But fortunately, I was connected to a person who does know all about it. Again, the person that knows what they're talking about as opposed to me. And boy, did I learn a lot, and what a way to share that side of it too.
Yeah, no, exactly right. We're still trying to get a couple folks on the line here with some phone issues, but we'll be digging into that. Shortly. Go ahead. 2
areas of the province will get totality as well. The out in the Stephenville area, big native area, and St. Albans area, Con River, is in totality as well.
Yeah, right. So you know, some of the Indigenous communities will have a great view of it. And I think, let me see, we got someone else from the from the issue. We're just getting on the line here now. Because, folks, when we do this is The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh, and it is our quarterly Newfoundland Quarterly show. And this one is the spring issue. It is about science, the whole thing. And a lot of it is, there's a good chunk of it that talks about the upcoming eclipse, right, April 8th. And we've talked about some safety stuff on that as well for everyone. We'll be getting to that. But here with me in studio, we've got Joan Sullivan, managing editor of Quarterly. We've got Robin Lacey, a PhD candidate in historical archaeology at MUN. Robin also runs Black Cat Cemetery Preservation with her husband. And we've got Randy Dodge, an amateur astronomer, as well as the secretary of the St. John's chapter of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. How long have you been part of that society for?
I joined in 1969.
There you go.
Been a member ever since. So,
at a time.
Boy, things have changed. I can just mention, these days you can take pictures with your phone. It knows everything.
Yeah.
Back then, we had to use special film. That's what went in cameras back then, right? Hybrid film, it was called. And if you try and look up at the night sky, you'll see stars. Sometimes you'll see some fuzzy things, but if you want to take any of the pictures you see, what they call astronomy now, nebulas and these sorts of things, you're talking about long-time exposures. To do long-time exposures, you had to have a tracking mount. Tracking mount has to be perfectly, precisely aligned, North Star type things. And if it wasn't, you got trailing stars. It took weeks to get your photos back. So you're shooting in the dark, literally, to try to take a picture. I have slide film from the 1972 eclipse, for example, and I have gigabytes of pictures from 2017 now, and so it's everything has changed since then.
I like when you gave your talk at Signal Hill about 2 weeks ago, though. I liked when you said to people, don't try and take the perfect photo. There's going to be so much great material. Like, experience it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting the way you called I think it was the 2017 eclipse, the first social media eclipse. think that's that's a real marker of events like this.
And even though we'll say we have 2 minutes or so of totality, and that will go in an instant, there's still time if you want to take pictures. There's no point in taking many pictures during totality because it's not changing. It's the lead up and the lead out of it. So you still will have time to look around and see what people are saying and those sorts of things. I have an app now, which, of course, everybody's got apps, which will tell you precisely, take off your glasses now, do this, do this, do this, do this, right? And it actually it's called the total solar eclipse timer. And so you can practice with that. And you really need someone to tell you, okay, it's safe now to take off your glasses. Because you could say, well, you put on your glasses till you can't see anything anymore, then take them off. But when do I put them back? An aspect that I first noticed in Mexico was as totality approached, that's the shadow. You could see it coming down over the hill and coming at you. And then as soon as it hit you, you knew you were in totality. Likewise, when it started to fade, you could see the sunlight coming off the mountains and coming at you. And that was the way we had to do timing back then, right?
I learned my picture-taking lesson back years ago when I did basic training and a military helicopter was flying over. You had those like the clicky roll, the old-fashioned cameras, the disposable ones. I took like 18 pictures of a helicopter. And then when I got it developed a week later, all I saw was a little dot. And I was like, you know what? Never again. So no more picture-taking for me. Let's go to the phone lines. Anita Singh is on the line, a visual artist. How you doing?
Hi, good.
Good. You got some art in the new Quarterly, a Sea Life 4. Tell us about it.
I'm not really familiar with what work was submitted. Sea Life 4.
Well, tell us about your art, and then I'll go and I'll pull it up to take another look at it and give you a very Adam's eye view description of it. So tell us more about the work you do.
My history, my mom was a scientist, and so I grew up with that kind of inspiration and support, and just have always been more connected to nature and using my imagination and thinking of the microscopic world and disappearing into that to find an understanding with how the world works and ask me something else.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah, this is actually the second piece from the series we've included, Anita. The other one was in about 5 issues ago.
Joan, do you want to let me check your mic there for a second because it looked like your mic. You want to just start that again because there was a mic issue.
This is the okay. This is the second piece, Anita, from this series we've actually had in the Quarterly. About 5 issues ago, we had, I think it was Sea Life 10, and they're just beautiful, colorful pieces. I'm just going to look. They're mixed media pieces. They're fairly small, very organic. This one, Sea Life 4, is a kind of jellyfish green creature floating against a red background, and then there's like a blossom jellyfish of cream and pinks. It's quite beautiful.
That is way better than how I was going to describe it. Like, that's so much better.
I'm also not very good at titling my work, and a lot of my work is sea life, and then I'll number it, and but that describes a lot of my work.
Yeah, it's this feeling of floating, and it's quite a beautiful piece, and very much in keeping with a lot of your work, which you also do a lot of ceramics too, I believe, don't you, Anita?
Yes, the past 10 years or so, I've been pretty obsessed with it. Yeah.
Excellent. Hey, listen, thanks so much for this. If people want to find more of your art, where do they look?
The Leighton Gallery in town, and the Craft Council also carries some of my work. Excellent.
Thanks for taking time to have a little chat.
No problem.
All right, and Joan, so we've got someone else on the line now too. So tell us about this piece, Nair. It's Indigenous Science, Ways to See the World. Give us a little intro on it.
So this, I alluded to this a little while ago, but this was when I wanted to see if there was such a thing that you could call Indigenous science. I'm making little quote marks with my fingers here, and how to approach it respectfully, how to discuss it respectfully. And I was connected to this person who knows all about it
Excellent.
and was very gracious in sharing her time with me.
Shailin Chowdhury is a narrative artist and cultural interpreter and conservation ecologist. How you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm great. How are you?
Good, great. Thanks for coming on the show. So tell us a bit more about the piece that you have in the Quarterly.
Well, just talking about some of the Mi'kmaq words that other ecologists have been really interested in using. So things like nedigalimk, eduoptimumk. So it was Mi'kmaq elder from Cape Breton, from Unama'ki, who really coined that phrase for us working in conservation, eduoptimumk, which is two-eyed seeing. So I was working with species at risk in the region for well over a decade, and it was so nice to see this concept being brought forward, because it reminded all of the ecologists, even those who were trained in university kind of mainstream European-based kind of ecology sciences, that there's also another way, another eye to that two-eyed seeing, another eye of how to look at the world. And that could be in the Mi'kmaq language and culture perspective, community ways of seeing things. And so once people caught on to that idea, it's almost like it just gave... it just opened the door to more conversation, so that while we're talking about species at risk, or while we're talking about different parts of the ecosystem, and really further all kinds of sciences, to be saying, okay, well, here's a bunch of teachings and mathematical equations, and what we've found from collecting certain kinds of data. Well, here's other stories and language and ways of also seeing what is going on, how is the best way forward, how should we even meet and talk about these things. So it's that's been really great. And then the other word that people have been curious about is nedigalimk, which is a Mi'kmaq word to say to sustain ourselves. So when we're talking about how can we sustain ourselves from the land in this modern time and not be harming the ecosystems. This is a question for many ecologists, around the world, of what is the message that we're giving society about, good ways forward. And so instead of just coming at it from maybe a perspective that some people have been trained in, to say, okay, well, let's make sure that we're asking Indigenous peoples for their ideas and stories, and not just of the past, but their visions for the future as well.
So then if we take everything you just said and we think about things like mitigating climate change and the employment of this, what are your thoughts? I know part of this is in the article, but just for everyone else.
Climate change is a really hard one. It's very, very, very complex. And so, I just want to say that it's not going to fall on the shoulders of Indigenous science to necessarily find the path forward, except, I love that when we're talking about Indigenous science, it takes us back to the land. We're actually, talking to people, looking at how do they collect food, material, medicine, and not just in theory, but we're actually doing it. And so, that we come together, we go into Mi'kmaq Indigenous communities, we're practicing these things, and just by, I believe, the very act of being on the land, actually doing these things, it reminds you, oh yes, we need a healthy landscape and ecosystem. And so I believe that can help us be really trying to calculate, how are we going to make decisions in our societies, in our cities, in our communities going forward, that how important is a healthy ecosystem for us. And so if we're not doing things on land, it's really easy to forget that, I think. And so I think it really helps these conversations in planning, even if there's not one solution going forward, that we all have to be part of learning together, being on the land together, and the television show Mi'kma'ki that Wendell Collier has put together really shows that interest in looking at Indigenous science from making birch bark canoes to looking at medicines, and that's even up for a Canadian Screen Award for Best Documentary. But it's that people are interested, no matter if you're Indigenous or non-Indigenous, that we're hungry and thirsty for positive visions and ideas and things to connect us back to the land itself.
Shailen Chowdhury, thank you so much for making time for this today.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
That TV series is available at CBC Gem.
I love that plug. But before I go back to my guests here in studio, as we're whipping through the hour, Hildy Nelson's on the line, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics and Physical Oceanography. Hilding, how you doing?
Oh, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
We're going to be hanging out soon. Tell us where.
Yes, well, on April 8th, there's going to be a beautiful total solar eclipse that's going to cross from the southwest coast Newfoundland through central, and you and I are going to visit Gander and spend some time there with the people of the town of Gander to experience this event. That's right. Folks in Gander, Gander Collegiate, some students are going to be around us too. I know you've got some MUN students who will be around. We'll be hanging out back and forth throughout the day. And, for all the astronomy type folks we've been talking to, I'm going to ask you the same question. How excited are you? Pins and needles, watching the weather very closely. I'm really excited, and I can't wait. And, I'm so excited. I'm going out days earlier. I'm going to have to help out organize some astronomy talks and astronomy events for the weekend before. Oh, are you going to the soiree on Friday? They've got an eclipse soiree from the schedule I was looking at. Yeah, so with the town of Gander, I've been helping them organize the eclipse soiree. We'll be doing an astronomy on tap at Friday night at the Elks Club. Astronomy on Tap is a global phenomenon where astronomers and scientists go out to local bars and pubs and community halls and talk to the general audience about astronomy and space. Wow. Well, hey, look, I'm looking forward to some astronomy on tap when I get to Gander to meet you. And I'm going to call you next week to arrange the show. But until then, thanks for this, and I'll talk to you soon. Oh, sounds great. Thank you. All right. Bye, Hilding. All right. So that's, one of my guests for the Gander show that's coming up. Any thoughts? I mean, we're talking about a whole lot of stuff, right? Any thoughts on what we've been talking about? Robin, any thoughts from what you've been hearing?
I hope I get to see some of it.
Yeah, that's I'm always so curious. Whenever there's events that are in the sky in Newfoundland and Labrador, I'm I try to be positive and optimistic, but then sometimes reality hits me. I'm kind of
absolutely
it's probably going to be not there. So
you were mentioning with ceramics and stuff, color.
Yeah.
There's a color aspect to the totality as well. It's not just the glow around the sun. There are prominences, storms on the sun, which appear on the edge, and they are a form of electric pink color. The only time I've ever seen that, and I could swear I could hear them buzzing.
Wow.
Right?
You brought a big thing too, right? I'm looking at the thing over there on the chair. So I'm going to bring it over to you because for everyone listening, we've got the cameras on. Okay. We do YouTube these shows more often than not these days. So if you want to see what we're about to describe to you,
sure.
Watch on YouTube later this afternoon. But hold on, let me go grab it. Keep talking while I go grab it. Hold on.
I can describe that my astronomy group have created a pamphlet with all the details and this map. So you can either go to St. John's RESC, or if you Google Astronomy Newfoundland, you should get to us. This map and the brochure is all there, as well as a tab on what events are happening that weekend, the soiree that you mentioned. And loosely, the eclipse path, the totality, is where you have to be to see totality. And that's a line that runs between Codroy and Bonavista and then extends about 90 kilometers on each side of that. If you're outside of that, it's not total, and there's nothing like 99% totality. No, it's binary. Now, take all of these maps with a grain of salt. They could be off by a kilometer. If you're in Botwood, part of Botwood might be on the center line, part not. I think the Colemans is out, and the and the other story is. So the closer you are to the very center line, the longer. And think of it as an ellipse. The shadow is an ellipse. The longest part of it is in the center. So as you get up to the top of the ellipse, it's a shorter time. Now, you still, even though you might be 50 kilometers inside that limit, you could still get a minute or minute and a half totality. St. John's, I've been looking lately at what possibly might happen in St. John's. St. John's, we've got 99.2% coverage. But if you go up to Pooch Cove And I'm not saying go to Puchkov, but you can't get much farther north on this side of the Avalon. Cape St. Francis, but that road is not very good this time of year. They'll get 99.6%. And I'm wondering, now I know all of my apps and things tell me what's going to happen. The moon is going to eat away at the sun from the bottom up through and then pass off. In St. John's, there'll be a little tiny sliver of light on the side, which will then go down around. But I'm wondering if you can get to the closest you can to totality, but not, whether or not the sun might actually blink at you. Because that's, if you enhance your picture with a camera or whatever, you're going to see that. But at a distance, it's just this bright sun, which will dim and then come back again. I'm just wondering what that might look like, a blink to some people. There's one aspect of an eclipse called a diamond ring. And that's at the very last pieces of the moon covering the sun. It dissolves into little pieces, Bailey's beads. But part of that is what a bright spot will appear, and they liken it to a diamond ring, a bright thing with a ring around it. This year they've calculated, as you would, they profile the edge of the moon. The moon is not flat. There's all kinds of areas of craters and things, and they're predicting a double diamond ring, which will appear. And they got that overlaid on top of that map. And there's 2 or 3 places in Newfoundland where you might see a double diamond ring. Heart's Content area, part of just south of Bonavista, and maybe south of Gander. If you happen to be there, you might see that double diamond ring.
Wow. Lots to look forward to, right, for this eclipse. And again, fingers crossed on the weather, right? We're going to be talking to Ashley Brawweiler every day in the lead up to this just to see if she can do stuff to hopefully influence it. Robin, so we talked about your piece in the Quarterly and a couple of books coming out. How's all the cemetery work going lately?
It's good. We're starting to take a look at what the field season's going to look like. We can't really schedule much until we know what the weather's going to be like, and when it stops being below about 7 degrees is when we can really get outside to do work. So we have to wait for some improved temperatures. Last year we started a little bit early. It was okay in town. We went up to Greens Pond. It was like 2 degrees. So that was we couldn't quite get everything done that we wanted to. So we want to make sure that we're starting when temperatures are cooperating. And
remind, because we did a show with you in Greens Pond, so remind some folks some of the work that you've done on the cemetery there, and like so what you do when you're out.
Yeah, in Greens Pond there are 6 historic cemeteries that we're working with the Greens Pond Historical Society to do some restoration work on. I think there's 300 and something gravestones that we did an assessment a couple of years ago to see how many stones needed work. Yeah. We're going out there and they're doing like community fundraising, so we're doing like little chunks at a time. I know they have a bunch of events planned there this summer that I don't know the details of yet, but Linda White told me about this yesterday. So hopefully we'll be out there at the same time as these events going on this summer to do a little bit more work. But we do some like cleaning of gravestones, making sure everything's like conservation safe, and repair work. If the gravestones are leaning, making sure that they're not leaning too far, that they could fall and break with gravity. Repairs and that kind of thing.
Cool. Yeah, no, I always find your work fascinating.
Thank you.
Randy, we just had someone called the show wondering how or if the eclipse will affect pets and animals.
Yes.
Because they do get weirded out by it, right?
They do.
To use my scientific knowledge again.
Yeah. In 1972, we were in the middle of a cow field, and of course the animals thought it was getting dark, so they lay down like you would. Bees, what do bees do in the dark? They just drop to the ground. Wow. They didn't know what to do. Dogs apparently react very loudly to most eclipses. They, again, don't know what's happening. It's getting dark. Nobody told them it's going to get dark early.
If they hear something.
You may hear something too. And, of course, people get excited too. People are shouting and all this, and they don't know what's happening. So there's that aspect as well.
So there you go. So, be mindful of your pets during the eclipse. One more safety hit for these glasses. So don't look at the sky. Sunglasses are useless. What are the...
So people often ask, well, where do I go? So if you're... St. John's is not in totality. Corner Brook is not in totality. If you're on the west coast, in Corner Brook area, you have to go south as far as Pinch Gut Lake, at least. If you're in St. John's, you have to go north of Come by Chance area, on the isthmus, or if you go up the western side of the northern Avalon, I don't know what you call those peaks things, Heart's Content north, you get the totality of eclipse. All the areas around from Port Basque over right up to Conagra are getting totality.
And make sure you get your eclipse verified proper glasses.
Look for the certification on the bottom of them. Again, you can Google pretty easily these days, safe glasses, these sorts of things. It's pretty much too late now if you're going to try to order them. I know there were some available at Showcase, and the Travel Bug downtown had them. I think they're going now to a on demand as well. If the Geo Center are having a sunblock party that day, they will be giving out glasses as part of your attendance. They will have a live feed and these sorts of things. As well, they have a bus tour going to Gander that day. So typical Newfoundland on a bus tour, right?
Lots of stuff. Randy, thanks so much. And Robin, thank you very much. And Joan, we're going from science to what summer?
Science fiction.
Science fiction is the next one?
Yeah, and if I may mention one more thing about the issue, not about the sun, but something under the sun. The Aspects piece on fisheries research and Wilfred Templeman. So it's by Lawrence Cody, and it's very personable, full of character, and it's still so relevant to what's happening with the fisheries today. I really learned a lot from reading it.
All right, folks, that's it for the show. Thank you so much for listening today, and we've got some. We're going to go out on some music. Why?
Because this wonderful song by the wonderful Carly Simon references the 1970 eclipse. I'm tempted to say, if somebody wants to make a suggestion of who is this song about, maybe they should win a subscription to the Newfoundland Quarterly.
All right, folks, send that email in if you want to win a subscription. thesignal@cbc.ca. I love this song. Here's Carly Simon taking us out. We'll be back after the Easter break. We're looking at the anniversary of 75 years of Confederation on Tuesday. Bye.